So I get a lot of questions about communication, and leadership at its core, it really is an ability to effectively communicate a vision and break it down into actionable steps. So a question I got from a founder was, my team says I struggle with communication. I don't really understand what they mean. What should I do? And this is a common problem, and I want to first give credit to the person that sent this to me, because a lot of people struggle with communication, but they don't take the initiative to actually ask for help. So first of all, kudos to this person for taking the initiative at asking for help. That is a big step in the right direction. But what can you do to clean up your communication? Here's what I'll say. It starts with your systems. So think about when you meet with your team and why are these meetings important. Here's a few meetings I want you to consider adding to your weekly cadence if they're not there already. One is a weekly all-hands meeting. This is an opportunity for your entire organization to get together and hear updates about what is most important, how are we progressing towards our goals for this quarter, and a way to make sure that people are staying aligned. This is probably not going to be as interactive as some of your other meetings. This will be more of a readout from the leadership team to the rest of the organization. And that's what that looks like will depend a lot on how big your organization actually is. But this is a chance for you to read out updates, progress checks, but also provide recognition. Remember, the things that we recognize are repeated. So this is a chance for you to recognize the actions that you want to be repeated and make sure people understand that their hard work is being noticed, because you don't want a bad job to feel like the same as doing a good job with your team. So have that weekly all-staff meeting, but you also need to have within your organization team meetings as well, where you can be more interactive and really get into the weeds of how are we tracking on our own team goals. If we're falling behind, what are the obstacles that we're facing to make sure that we're getting ahead of things as the end of the quarter doesn't come and now all of a sudden we're trying to problem solve. We should be problem solving throughout the entire quarter. These weekly team meetings are a great place to do that. Also recognition in these meetings as well. But then also our weekly one-on-ones between you and your direct reports. A lot of people skip these one-on-ones. They end up getting canceled. Terrible. Like, you need to have one-on-ones with your team if you're a leader, because you need to stay in tune. You need to stay in touch. You need to have time and space for that person specifically to understand how they're doing, to understand the obstacles they're facing, to understand how they're tracking on their own specific goals. This is a chance for you to give recognition as well, but also to give direct feedback in times where that is relevant and you need to provide that feedback. But it's important to have that space, and don't let it be optional. I feel like a lot of leaders fall into the trap where the one-on-ones with their teams become optional and they just get canceled so often that they eventually just delete them off their calendar altogether. You need to reinforce and stress with your direct reports how important it is for you to have that time with them one-on-one. That is a great way to show them how much you value that relationship, that you're personally protecting the time. And if they need to cancel, and if they try to cancel, find a way to reschedule, right? Don't let it become a cancellation. Instead, ask them, let's find a different time to meet, because this time is really valuable and I want to make sure we keep it on the calendar. So keep that cadence going. If you have those meetings, it's going to be a lot easier to clear up your communication, because you have points where you can provide updates. When there are new initiatives, you can provide the communication, you can give people a heads up of what's coming in the future. But if you don't have these consistent meetings, people might not know where to look. And after every single meeting, when there are action items at the end of the meeting, make sure it's clear that everybody on the call can answer this question. Who is going to do what by when? We'll talk about ideas, and there might be some assumptions that people understand who's supposed to do what, who's responsible for different tasks, when are the due dates, but specify at the end of the call who's going to do what by when. Send a follow-up email as well, so there's clear communication. It is common that when there are communication issues on teams, there are also trust issues, because people start feeling like they're the only ones doing the work. The problem, and the reason that this happens, is that there isn't clarity on who's owning what different piece of the large responsibility. So because this person only has visibility to the work they're doing, they assume they're doing all the work. In reality, what is generally true is that everybody's doing a lot of really important work. There aren't communication processes or visibility around who is doing what. So it creates some lack of trust, unfortunately, and some confusion. But just by clarifying who's owning what piece of each job, it can clean up a lot of that. So effective meeting cadences are huge in cleaning up your communication processes. Meetings are a tricky one because people generally do not like being at meetings, right? There always is this conversation around, like, there's taken away from my important work. Your job as a leader is to make sure that each meeting is valuable and people understand why they're meeting. If you're not prepared for the meeting and you're just showing up and it becomes like 15 minutes of talking about what happened at the game last night, like, people that don't care about sports are just going to tune out and be kind of frustrated that you're wasting their time. So don't let that happen. Make sure the meeting starts on time, make sure it ends on time, make sure you're prepared for it, and use it as the opportunity to communicate the important initiatives within your organization. This is a huge step forward in cleaning up the communication process, which will allow there to be more trust within your organization.